sales is involved in everything we do, like from convincing our friends where to go to dinner,
Finding a
talking,
wife, convincing her to go out with you.
convincing a girl. Like you got to sell yourself and everything. And you've been in the game for such a long time, and you've seen a lot from like all the different sales techniques, all the different sales tactics. I want to kick things off and ask you this: like, what makes a great salesperson to you? Hello and welcome. This is the DC Talks podcast. I'm your co-host, Owen and we're back in the building with our main man, David Chinelli, ready to give it up and talk about.
Wait, what am I giving up?
You're giving up.
Just kidding.
Giving up some tips on sales, psychology, negotiation. That is what we're talking about today, Dave.
Ooh,
you know,
juicy.
And juicy stuff. And this is one of my favorite topics, just because I love sales. I've read a lot of sales books. I've done a lot of sales training over my career, and I know as an agent, selling is a big part of what you do. Like,
what?
I mean,
what are you talking about?
You
just can't sit there and go on billboards and look pretty.
It's 1,000% of what you do. I wish it was that easy for you, right? Just like reel them in.
I wouldn't make any money.
Yeah. And just to kick things off, you know, like as we begin talking about sales, before real estate, did you ever have any other type of sales role? Yeah. Which one?
Well, even with services, I guess we can start over too. I was helped a server. My first job, other than working with my dad for kids, that was his service industry. He was a hairdresser, so I helped service that. Like, you know, I remember back in the day, it was like picking up garbages and cleaning out ashtrays.
You're doing the grunt work.
Yeah, it was shitty. I was like, but then I went into when I had a job other than with my dad was went from my aunt's place. My aunt and uncle, they owned a place called Ice Cream Patio, which used to just do ice cream. So from there, I was a server, made coffee, all that kind of. So I got into the public eye. So it was more of them coming to me. And again, I had a whole bunch of other jobs. We talked about coaching and things like that. But the first sales job I had was actually selling running shoes when I was 19. So even though I was coaching, I was help selling the service because I go somewhere else. We talk about that. So it wasn't, hardcore sales. It was more like you had a service to provide and then you sell that way. Selling shoes. Yeah. I did that and I'm like, I actually really liked it. Yeah.
You know what? I always say like every person, like if you don't have any career goal or where you want to go with your life, sales is like one career path that can really teach you a lot about yourself, can teach you a lot about people's psychology, the way they think. And also, sales is involved in everything we do, like from convincing our friends where to go to dinner,
finding a wife, convincing her to go out with you,
convincing a girl. Like you got to sell yourself and everything. And you've been in the game for such a long time, and you've seen a lot from like all the different sales techniques, all the different sales tactics. I want to kick things off and ask you this: like, what makes a great salesperson to you?
A great salesperson is when you're making a sale without the person feel like they're being sold to.
Yeah.
Like, so it's not pulling the wool over everybody's eyes. You're giving them exactly what you're doing, exceeding their expectations. And not making them feel creepy. You know what I mean? Like
sleazy sales. You know?
That drives me nuts. And so I always find it's a good sale when, when everybody, either both parties are happy or neither party's happy. Yeah. Why do I say that? It's like both parties are happy because they got what they're kind of looking for in the sale price, or both parties are unhappy because, this guy sold it for too low and this guy paid a little more than he thought, or he didn't get something thrown in there because it was just kind of, they had to compromise and they had to compromise. It's nobody thinks of it the negative way, but that also makes a good sale because it was like, yeah, you know what? Like they're both give and take a little bit too. And our job is to facilitate that. I'm hopefully always giving the people the positive experience, but once in a while it happens a negative. But we're looking at the end of the day, we're like, yeah, it was a good sale. Even the ones that said like, shit, I know I didn't really want to pay that, and then a couple of years later, like, oh my god, can you believe I almost backed away from the deal for $3,000? I'm like, yeah, you weren't happy with paying it. They didn't want to give you that, and they're like, it was a stalemate, and it worked out.
And like the one thing I realized, especially when you're in that situation, commonly, like I remember a couple of managers I had before, I didn't close the deal. Let's say when I was working at Good Life Fitness. And one thing I used to get a lot was, wow, you're such a great salesperson, right? And I kind of used to take that as if like, you know what, even though I didn't get the sale, at least the boost I got from getting that compliment, I felt is good. But he ends up telling me, honestly, Owen, that's actually a bad thing, because it shows that you're really trying to close the sale and you're really trying everything. You're pulling all the things in the book to close the sale, and they can see that. Yeah. And that's why they actually are not really feeling as if like you're gelling. And that's one big mistake I had to learn. It's when you're trying to convey a service or product towards someone, by trying to do everything it comes across as if there's like a textbook you have in your head of what to do, what not to do, what different things. And you got to learn to make things as natural as possible. Even though you know these things, it just make them feel as if like, hey, this is what I'm doing. You might not know what I'm doing, but it's something that is working, and you might not know it's working, but I know it's working, but it's a part of who I am. And I think that's what all rookie salespeople do, is like they're trying everything, and the person who you're selling to, they can feel it.
Yeah. So I had a coach, as you know, before, and we used to use scripts, and he would say, like, you need to practice the scripts over and over again until it becomes like fine music. The problem that I find with some people is they'll look at a script when they're like, and they'll practice it to a T. They also can't pivot from that too, because they throw a curveball which doesn't go to their script. They just don't know what to say, and it's like, or they just can't think outside the box. And that's a problem with scripts sometimes too. I find that you do, if you're following just scripts, you are being the salesman, like, because you're not really listening to what you're listening for is cues in order to put in your information, as opposed to sitting there listening to what the client wants and working other maybe techniques, I guess. But a lot of it revolves around listening. That makes a good salesperson, or somebody does well in sales, as being that used car sales, is somebody who listens to what their client wants, absorbs that information, and then tries to help them find that and figure out solutions to what they're looking for. Yeah. As opposed to saying, well, I sold 15 cars today. You know, like this guy didn't even want it. Look how good of a salesman. I'm like, I sold ice to an Esco. Like, that was a saying back in the day. I know now it might be racist saying that, but they used to say, like, selling ice to somebody who lives up north. You know, I can't use those words anymore. But yeah, it was one of those things, right? It's true, right? I never wanted to be in sales because I didn't want to be seen as a salesman, you know, salesperson, right?
Yeah, it's like, it's a very the residue you get when someone says you're a salesperson, it's like they seem as if it seems as if you're always going to deceive people or something, right? And that's like the one thing that, if you're going to be selling something, one, you've got to really believe in what you're selling. Because if you don't believe in what you're selling, you're always going to be that sales guy who's just looking to sell as many cars as possible. And you can end up screwing a lot of people. You know, it just feels slimy.
Dirty, yeah.
It feels so slimy. Like, how do you sleep at night knowing that, you know, you sold someone something and they were not even ready for it, right? Just because of closing the sale. And that's one of the things that I hate about the industry, is that there's this pressure of closing. And in real estate too, it's like, if you don't close sales, if you don't close deals, there's no way you're going to eat. Yeah. But it goes back to what you're really in this business for, is to really make people happy, is to really make people find the homes that's going to be good for them. And that's a really loving sale at the end of the day that benefits you and also benefits them at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, if it doesn't help anybody at the end of the day, then why are you doing this?
Yeah.
You know? If it's only helping you, it goes back to one of our first conversations that check your ego at the side. It has nothing to do with you. The sale has nothing to do. So this is an emphasis on that too. If your goal is just to make money, get the fuck out of my office and run. Right? Get the fuck out. Like, if you're not here for the benefit of your clients, I never want to see you.
Absolutely, man.
So it just, that mentality, I need to do this. If we're having a conversation and the first three things out of your mouth are I, leave. L. You know? Yeah. So I think that also, and a lot of it comes down to psychology and learning. So when you first get into the industry, whether it's any industry, let's be honest. I don't care what entrepreneur you are, you're going to have to sell your services. And that's something nobody ever tells you. Okay. So nobody tells you your job right now. You guys uplift studios, right? When you got into this, like, you guys could have the best equipment, the best photographer. But if you don't sell yourself to somebody else, how's anybody going to ever know that? So you got to learn how to sell yourself in a way that not selling yourself, you know, giving away, you know, does that make sense?
You have to communicate your value.
Of course, I understand that too, and say, here's what I can bring to you, and here's what I can do. But at the same time, you know, it's a part of it. Now, there's certain things you have to keep in mind, like, you know, profit. There's certain things you have to keep in mind for sales and how you help somebody, which should be first and foremost, right? Like, you need all those ideas coming into it. But in order for you to earn a living at this, you're going to have to market it somehow, or sell, or cold call, or do something.
Yeah. And that's a great thing you brought up next, cold calling. And we are two people who enjoy cold calling, and you have a lot to talk about this, right? And the thing about cold calling is a lot of people are nervous when they do this. There's a fear.
It's not even cold calling in general. Even people that they know,
The people that they know,
they even know they don't want to call.
There's a thing about like these days when we look at our phones, it's like we've forgotten there's a use of actually calling someone with it. It's like a texting platform now. So
it's a mini computer.
It's a mini computer, right? We watch TV, we like watch reels, whatever it is.
But did you know, sorry, before you get into that, your phone is is the most activity we do throughout the day. Like you're on your phone. Looking at apps on your phone is the most activity you do throughout the day. It used to be watching TV and then sleeping. Now people are on their phones more than they're even eating, sleeping, drinking, using the bathroom, more than any other activity. So, and it's funny you say that, and it's like we say to our kids, I'm like, they're saying like, how do I get in touch with this person? You know, the thing you have in your hand, you can actually call somebody. Like it's, because we're using it for everything else. And during COVID, we also started everything online, like everything. So it just became a huge platform for us to be on, and huge for realtors because now I advertise on your phone for a reason. Yeah, I don't have to go door knocking anymore.
There's a couple of doctors. They're even saying like, if you look at people's postures now, people who come in, a lot of the back pain is like because their necks are always bending over because they're always looking down because we're so addicted towards just typing, communicating, viewing whatever's on our screen. But I'm gonna get back to the actual like aspect of cold calling.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Got a
little sidetrack.
Let's get back into that, right? Why do you think people, even within your industry, are scared to make that cold call?
I think there's a lot of just not feeling confident in themselves, right? Or not knowing what to say. So like for the newer agents I brought in, I showed them what to do. It's like, here's what you need to do, right? Like I need you to call somebody. So we're going to call this cold calling, but essentially it's like a warm cold calling. So what I tell them to do is take their database and like and create a database. So who's in your database? And the answer to that is anybody you would call or text that you don't have to spend more than a sentence explaining who you are. So your family members, your friends. So if I called them and said, hey, it's David Chinelli, I'm like, okay. I'm Matthew's cousin. Oh yeah, I remember you. Okay, we did this. Great. If I have to get into a longer conversation, they're not going to be your database.
Exactly.
Okay. So download the names in your phone, go through those. And like, so these are warm, should already be not warm cold. Leads. Well, not really warm yet, but they're also not dead cold, right? It's not a cold case we're working on here. And I said, okay, once you get in there, like those are the people you are looking for. Now, in that kind of a situation, like you should already have sort of warmth and know a little bit about them. So here's what I want you to do is when you give them a script now, and you talk to them, and once you tell them that, you can feel more comfortable. It's not going to be easy in the beginning, but you practice it more and more. What you need to do is give them value, right? And the next part is like when you speak to them, how you speak to them, how long you speak to them at every interval also helps. So the problem I find with most people is they're scared of making phone calls. They're scared of asking for people for money, but just that's a psychological answer. Like it's not a real thing. If you get to the root of it, it's because like, well, really, what do I say? So I give them like some of the scripts we worked on too. It doesn't necessarily be like, it doesn't have to be the same one. I'm like, so here's where we go in the beginning. And if you want, we can talk about that too. Like, so there's something called the 12-second rule. And you can use this for cold calling as well. If somebody you don't know. And what it is, within the first minute, you have a conversation with somebody. And this is for those people too that are, on like CRO, what do they call the call centers. This is good for you. This is why most people hang up on you. Is as soon as somebody answers the phone, I call you, say, hey, Owen, and I just get into my spiel. I don't let you talk. You get shut off. It happens around the 12-second mark. So for the first minute, you need to build some rapport, some back and forth. And then that helps build trust. Again, sales is about building trust. And then that trust then can translate to longer conversations. So when you and I are first calling and talking to each other, I can't talk for more than 12 seconds because then it becomes all about me. Your brain automatically shuts me off in that first minute. So how many times have you had this conversation? Like ring the phone, hey, Owen. Oh, sorry, is Owen there, please?
Hey, yeah, this is Owen.
Hey, it's David Chinelli here from ABC Duck Cleaning. I know it's a great day outside. I bet your ducks are probably fully clean. And you want somebody to come in and you want to clean them. I have the best service in the world, the best guys. We can get everything done in like 24 hours. You just tell me the location. I'll have 5 guys right there. And I swear it will be the best price in the world.
Wow.
So are you going to sign up today?
I'm not interested. That's how it goes.
So I could have been the best in the world at what I did.
Yes.
100% could have been the best in the world I did. Did I make you feel comfortable? Hey, I don't even know if you have ducks, for crying out loud. For all I know,
You don't even know if I already have a cleaner. You don't even know what I'm looking for.
I don't know if you have radiators in the house.
I might have dogs I need cleaning. You never know.
It drives me insane. So every time somebody calls me, like, I even felt bad. Like there's a donation person. They were calling me, and it was like, for what? Some police service. Okay. And they got into it, and I'm like, dude, stop. And I'm like, what? I'm like,
take a breath.
Take a breath. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, what do you need? I'm looking for a donation. Great. What's the cause? The cause is for, and they stop. Don't get into it. Just what's the cause? Okay, great. So what can I do to help? And I broke it down that way. And I'm like, do you see the difference in the conversation?
So you're actually coaching them on the call.
I didn't donate, but but I taught him something there too. So the way that it works. So we'll even let's try this different conversation. Yes. I'm going to be from ABC. I'll call you. Ring, ring.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing very well. My name is David Chanelli. Is this Owen?
Yes, it is.
Hey, Owen. I run a company. It's called ABC Duct Cleaning.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, it sounds pretty good. We're a brand new startup company, but I got amazing technicians with me. Right. So do you have ducks in your home? Are you living in a home that has ducks, first of all?
Yeah, I have 2 ducks.
2 ducks? Yeah. Not the ones that quack. I'm talking the one that pushes air.
Yes, yeah, I got 2 ducks.
Good. Nice.
Ducks, not ducks.
Good. Yes. That's awesome. So yeah, like I just started this company. So we're trying to get in grassroots and getting we're going to be close to you next, 5 days. Right? And we're giving really good discounts. Do you think your ducks might need the service? Just a good cleaning, even at a great price from amazing technicians. Dave,
that's actually a great time you call me, because my wife was actually kind of giving me some stress about this. She was kind of complaining, hey, Owen, you need the ducks. So that's such a perfect time to call.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, so today or tomorrow or Thursday, would it work around 5:00? Because I'm going to be in your areas around those times, both around those days.
Yeah, actually, my girls are finishing soccer practice around 3, so we should be back at home for Thursday.
Great. Yeah. So there was the 12-second rule. I didn't talk for more than 12 seconds at a time within the first minute without you saying something. As soon as you say something, the clock resets at 0. We got a little banter. I found it if you need it. If you didn't need it, I'd say, okay, great. But okay, so here's what I do anyway, in case you might need it in the future. Or if you know somebody might be looking, I would love to be able to help. Again, and then I also, when you did say yes, notice I gave you 2 options.
2 options, yeah.
The 2 options is because when you're giving 2 options, again, it goes to psychological. You're giving your brain option A or option B. There's no option C if you say no. So these are kinds of things. So when I was building like cold calling, and if somebody I didn't know that I know, so how you're cold calling also matters where you're calling. Like houses on the streets that have sold a property within 7 days are 33% more likely to list a home. So that you hammer those homes and you do this kind of conversation. And if somebody says, yeah, I'm thinking about it. So that conversation is a little bit different. Like you're like, so I'll give you one conversation like that. This is a script I used, but I made it myself. So I call you up, say, ring, ring.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing well. Hey, is Owen there, please?
Yes, this is Owen speaking.
Hi, Owen. My name's David Shelley. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic, David.
Great. I'm a realtor with Royal LePage. Okay. So I don't know if you've noticed, but the market has kind of shifted lately, but houses are still selling fast.
Okay.
Yeah. There was a house on your street. It's actually 5 doors down from you.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. It sold for 10% above asking.
Wow.
And it had 6 offers on it.
Oh, was that Rob's house down the street?
It was. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a guy. He's already moving out of the neighborhood, eh?
I know, but he's cashing in.
Cashing in. Man, I got to give Rob a ring.
Yeah. But Rob had 6 offers on his properties. 5 of them didn't work out. Okay. So guess what? Those 5 people are now looking on the street because they love that property so much. They want to find a similar house. So I don't know if you've ever thought about selling, but if one of those buyers came to your home and I found that buyer for you, would you think about selling?
Yeah, I got to talk to the missus.
Right. Yeah. So before you make any decision like that, obviously I want the missus there with you. I'm going to be in your neighborhood on Thursday or Friday. So both days, because Thursday I have to go meet my niece, and Friday I'm actually getting more information. So Thursday I'm going to be there around 2:00 or on Friday at 5. Either one of those times work. I can just stop in. Again, no strings attached. I'll just kind of talk to you about the process. And if you're willing to go forward, maybe we can talk the next steps at that point, but no pressure.
All right. Come through, give me a ring again, just to confirm you're in the area. And then I can bring you in. Right. I can walk you around the property. You can see how much I can possibly get. And then we can take it from there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So again, that's more of a flow. Does that feel like I was trying to sell you on anything?
No, it just sounded very natural. Exactly.
And again, that was built on a script we've had before, which I've changed towards the way I like it, because I hit the certain things I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Did the 12-second talk, made sure I talked clearly, spoke to your needs, gave you some value. Your neighbor sold. sold less than 2 days ago, sold for this amount. Maybe now, like, there's still people in the market. They missed out on this property. In case you had that buyer. I probably don't have a clue who those buyers are, but I know people who were looking, right?
Yes.
So that kind of sparks it's a different conversation. But it's very different if I jumped in there and say, hey, if things are selling fast, like, you should sell your house.
It sounds like you're trying to pressure me.
Yeah. Pressure tactics never work with me. Anything. If anybody tries to pressure me, I walk away. When it comes to my clients, same thing. When I'm meeting somebody, whether they're a buyer or seller, I make sure we have this meeting first, and I don't bring paperwork to sign. It's not what I do. I give them home. I send them home with some paperwork, some pre-printed stuff for them to review. Because if you're going to work with me, you're going to have to sign this paperwork. Make sure you read it. Never sign something. And we've talked about this before in the podcast, but I'm emphasizing this again. Never sign something you haven't read. Understand what you're signing. Understand what you're signing up for. What are your obligations? What's this person's obligations? Okay.
Amazing.
So I don't do pressure. I don't think it works. I don't think it works on both sides. So it helps build that trust. Again, I want you to feel like your family. I want you to trust me. And I want you to know by doing these kinds of things, you will know that I am in your best. We're doing things in your best interest. We're going to work on this together, this relationship. It's not me dictating to you. I hate being dictated to. I hate it when my dad used to come home and he'd say, bark orders at me. It drives me nuts. But Dad, I'm doing that. I don't care. Do this now. But I'm just like, no. I made sure I don't do that. My kids might say different, but
I mean, when Pop says something, like, it depends how it comes off too, right?
Yes.
How it's communicated, like the way, the tone, like the nature you say it. It might inspire someone to do something, or it might make them just like recoil back and be like, like, leave me alone. I don't want to deal with whatever you're asking me to. It's just like human psychology. Exactly. So
back to the cold calling, if you're calling your family and friends, so we still use those aspects. Use the 12-second rule when you're doing the beginning. Add the value to the conversation, but leave them with, you only want to have a short conversation. You never want the person to get off the phone going, I don't want to talk to that person again.
You feel drained after some time.
Oh God, you have those people that are just like suck. So when I sit down with my, with my mentorees, I guess you call them, the ones that the girls I'm mentoring, it was like, okay, here's what we do. You make the call and you say, explain and say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm David Chinelli. I say, hey, it's David. Hey, Dave, you have 5 minutes for a business conversation. This is not personal. Do you have a couple minutes? You ask their permission for it. Because they're family, friends, or somebody might know. You ask them for permission. It's help building that trust. If they say, or they say, no, can you call back in 5 minutes? Great. What's a better time? Give them the two options. Okay, can I call you at 5, or can I call you? Is it later in the evening?
And when you give them two options, it's like either option works best for you, regardless.
Exactly. Giving options.
It's like the paradox of choice. Like, all right, B, fine, whatever, works for me.
But give them options.
Yes.
Right. The second thing is, when I was doing that conversation with you last time, I said I'm going to be in your neighborhood. That also takes pressure off the person, because you're not making
an appointment
just for them, right? You're already gonna be in the neighborhood. That's a trick too. So anyway, you get into, then you say, so I have a couple of minutes. When they say, sure, absolutely, it would help you. Like, hey, I just got my real estate license. I'm working with David Chinelli, and with Royal LePage Signature, an amazing brand. Oh, I'm so excited for you. That's great. It's a new part in my career. But I'm like, listen, I'm new in this game. And I'm looking for people who might be looking to buy, sell, lease, anything. Do you know anybody who might be interested in helping me out? Friends and family want to help you out. This is what we have to get past. You're not begging for money. You're not begging for business. You're asking, hey, can you help? I'd love to. And what I tell my girls is like, because they're two girls, I would tell my team, I would say too, is like, in case they ask about like, what, you don't really have too much of a track record. I was like, that's the great thing. I have David behind me who mentors me. He's here to help me through all the process. So you also need some objection handlers, because there's going to be people that are just going to push back on you. So you have to have a thick skin and learn like what some of the objections are. And there's other ways of handling objections. You have to talk to conversations.
Amazing. Yeah. And I want to get to the next step now. Like, you've gone past the cold call. Now you're actually dealing with a person face to face. And within this industry, there's a lot of negotiation from a lot of parties. There's the buyer who's negotiating, and then there's the seller who's negotiating. You are acting more so as like the middle person. Let's say when you're double ending a deal, you're working for both sides. But let's say you're negotiating with someone on removing the price from, let's say, from 800,000, let's go to 750.
So am I representing the seller or the buyer?
Let's say, who do you want to represent? Let's say you're representing the.
So let's say I'm representing the buyer. I'm up against somebody who's listed a property for $799, and we want to get it for like say $725, $750.
Yeah. Okay. When you're in that position, right, and you're negotiating, what do you really do to negotiate the best? Like, what are some tactics you can share with the audience to negotiate the best outcome for you and for your client?
So first off, we talk about my clients. So I wanted to know what the top end dollar is. Like, so what I do is, first off, we will run comparables to the property. So even though it's listed for $800,000, well, the other one sold for this, and we kind of figure out what our ballpark is. That I said, okay. Now that's kind of what the market's saying. Well, let's see, what are you willing to pay for it, right? So, and we figure out. I said, if somebody's this at this price point, so this is $799. If somebody came in at, say that we think the property is worth $775. Okay, well, somebody came in at like $750. Would you be upset at somebody? Of course. Okay, then we move up. Okay, what about $775? You know what, Dave? I'd still be upset about that. Okay. Now, what about if $785? Now, you know what? I don't think it's worth $785. I don't think I pay that. Let them have it. Okay. So I know beforehand negotiating, I know what my clients are looking for. Then when I'm talking to the seller, I would say, like, I kind of pull on the heartstrings a little bit. It's a tactic. It's building rapport with the other agent. Because again, it's like a song and dance, like anything else. In order for every side to be kind of happy with it, there has to be some sort of dance. There has to be some sort of rhythm between the two of you, right? It's not, you can't go in and hammer what you want. Sometimes that works with some people, but it's not always the best outcome. And I found that what we do is explain to our clients and not give every information, like, oh, they have, $100,000 down payment, they want to pay. Like, no, say like, so I would call the other agent and say, what are they looking for closing? Here's a little bit about my clients. Or a young couple that look in that. If they're an investor, I usually don't say that, but I just like, you kind of leave that out. But you kind of pull on the heartstrings a little bit and try to get some information on them and try to figure out what the price point's going to be that. And then when it comes to price, it depends, right? It depends on how hard the other side is. Now, I had a deal just before Christmas. The property was listed for 1.8, almost 1.2, so 1.18, so just under 1.2 million. And the neighbor had sold for 200,000, around 1.25, 1.27. So I went in with my clients and I figured out their price point was just about $1,030,000 was the top end. I'm like, talking like $150,000 less, right? So I talked to the agent and he goes, yeah, we know we're a little overpriced because the market had shifted, right? I said, so I talked to my clients and knew what they were going to be in there too. I said, well, listen, if we give you your closing date, if we can give you a good deposit and I'll give you confidence and we'll still put conditions in there to make sure your clients are covered as well. So you put it on their side, even though those are the things my clients wanted, we'll give you this. And I said, we're starting a price point, which is close to our top end. It wasn't really the top end, but it was close to what we were going to pay. I'm like, listen, we have a little bit more. And as I said, I told my clients, this is the tactic. We're not going to start too low because that's another tactic. You put anchors. Another one is you throw in anchors. But I kind of threw anchors in there. So what an anchor is you throw in an anchor for a high end and a low end. And so when you're negotiating, obviously you don't think the person's going to take the lower end, but the higher end should be closer to what your price point is. Yeah. So I did that. I kind of, when I was talking before, I gave them a really low offer below. Like I said, I don't know if we're going to make $1 million, but I could probably get them, a little bit higher. We'll give you a price which is close to our end. So I kind of set the anchor without telling them. So when we gave an offer, I said we're going to give $1,015,000, $1,015,000. Again, that's almost $200,000 less than asking. Yeah. They pushed back. They said, well, do you think your guys would take $1,030,000? So, let me talk to my guys. And I said, what about $1,025,000? And I got it for $1,025,000, $200,000 less than neighbor sold less than a year earlier. Yeah. It's because we did these tactics. And that's from Voss too. He talks about putting the anchors.
Say, like when you're discussing emotional drivers, right?
Exactly.
Establishing a range, right? So when you're giving someone a price, it's like, I want a range between 700 to $1 million, right? Yeah. So even this happens in negotiating a salary or negotiating any number. Yeah. Is when you're establishing a range. Now, when you come out and say that, they're playing within your arena of like, this is, regardless of whatever you decide to do here, I'm walking out here with something that I'm going to be comfortable with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you figure out what your client's number is, what they're comfortable in, and then you throw in anchors around there and put into the mind of the other side. So sometimes I'll put an anchor in, depending on the client. Sometimes I don't know the anchor, like, we don't know the real number, and something that goes above that. But sometimes I'll throw in an anchor in there and just hoping that's what the price is. I'll tell the client, like, don't quote me on this, but I'm already establishing something in the other agent's mind. So it's just psychological. I'm like, don't quote me on this. We have talks all the time, but that's why it's good to build a rapport with the other agent, because we need to facilitate the deal. Both sides have to be happy.
Yeah. And one of the things that you're talking about, even when you're bringing that up, is when you're requesting these things, you're asking open-ended questions. They're calibrated open questions. And talking about the Voss book, right? Never Split the Difference.
Fantastic
book, right? And I actually want to get deeper into this because a lot of the things that we're using these conversations, actually we're using them in everyday life. So one thing we covered is like you're establishing a range, which you're speaking about an anchor. You're using open-ended calibrated questions, right? So when you say, how am I supposed to do that, right? That's one of the best things that...
Yeah. So you explain that to the client. So the audience, so what Owen's talking about, if you watched or read the book, so I listened to the book a couple of times. Every time I listen to it, I hear something else. It's called Never Split the Difference. It's a fantastic book. And it's from an FBI negotiator. Actually, who started teaching courses. It's a fantastic book. And the open-ended questions is somebody pushes back on you. What he'd always say was like, well, in some sort of way, say like, well, how am I supposed to do that? Yeah. That's like, well, so if you said to me, it's like, well, I need to run a marathon. I'm like, well, how am I supposed to do that? Like, and you're like, so it just kind of, and you kind of get to that point and like, and you let them negotiate with themselves a lot of time.
Yeah. And ultimately he says that when you're in that space, you're actually allowing the other person to look more intelligent. You're allowing them to make them feel as if like, hey, you're in charge here. And the more they're feeling in charge, the more they're actually taking control of everything. And you say, hey, Owen, can you deliver me that proposal by 10? Well, Dave, I have this coming up. How am I supposed to do that? Oh, well, we can do this, and that. Oh, yeah? Like, how are we supposed to get there with that, right? And before they know it, now they've actually taken themselves out of the equation. And now they're playing in near ballpark without even you knowing it. Yeah. Which is I find it amazing.
It works with kids too, by the way. So my kids will say like, they want a certain toy, or like they're not toys, my kids. They want it. So my kids will want a certain game for their Switch or something too. And you're like, okay, so how are you going to do that? How are you going to pay for it? Mommy and daddy are going to pay for that. So your sales tactics even works at the home. Oh yeah. So, okay. So what if I save my money on it too? That's a good option. Okay. What else are you going to do? And you start thinking, so now they can control, first of all, you're learning to teach them with their money, what a budget is and how they're going to get to it and get to their goal, what they're going to get to. So without doing it so much, my wife and I are also, I guess, instilling sales tactics with our kids, not giving them, you should never give everything to your kids anyway, but just because they ask, that's not how we were brought up.
Yeah. And what are some other things that, you saw from that, like when you're studying this book that you've been like, you know what? I know this tactic, but I haven't had a chance to use it yet.
The no tactic. I love that. So I do use that. I don't realize it too. So again, if we go back to the cheesy salesperson that calls you on the phone, they're building a fake rapport and they're trying to get you to say yes to everything. So eventually it comes to the sale line. They want you to say yes. It's called, but in reality, that yes is a fake yes to get you off the phone. Right? You want to get to that point. That's right. You want the that's right point, which Voss talks about. That's a point at which you have them. So the way you get to that point is that you give them a couple of questions, which the answer is going to be no, and you allow them to say no. And you get to them because you're asking calibrated questions to get them thinking, to let you know that you're listening. Again, that's building rapport. And so I use that, but I don't get the actual no's I'm looking for. I'm just kind of letting them thinking, but I want to get to those one situations. They just say, no. That's right. That's what I want. And I haven't got to that point.
Especially because you're letting them dictate the environment. I actually made a note about here. He says, giving your adversary permission to say no is giving them the right to veto. Allowing them to oppose you creates the illusion that they can voice their right, and negotiating environment becomes automatically more constructive.
Yeah.
Which I love it, right? And I love that thing because if I know why you're saying no, which goes to the next thing, if you get them to say no, it goes to the other thing of like actually removing the things, I believe this and whatever. You can actually go to the next tactic, which says, let's say I can't negotiate on price. You say, it seems like I'm asking you to lower the price, right? And that you won't get to the profit margin you're expecting. And it's like, that's right? And then now that you've got them to actually understand that, now you can actually come to a place where they feel heard, goes back to the other part. Everything all ties together.
Yeah.
Now you're saying, that's right. Okay, what works the best for you? Hey, this would work the best for me. So what I'm hearing, right? So you actually repeat the same question back to them. He's like, and you just said, that's right. What I'm hearing here, DC, is what you're saying is this, and that. That's right. And now before you know it, it goes back to what Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street, he has this thing called the straight line method. Have you heard about this?
No.
So the straight line method, it pretend like we have a line right here, the upper boundary, and then we have the lower line, which is the lower boundary, and then we have like imaginary, like a road, right? So if you look at a road, it has marks between it, so which means you can actually like go a lane and you can overtake it. So the opening part of it means that when you are opening a sale with someone, there's different parts of these marks of the road which establish certain things, and he has a certainty method. So on a level of, let's say, trust is part of that road, on a certainty scale, how much does this person trust me? And the thing is, I cannot move to the next part, which is the product, which says that on a scale of 1 to 10, they are certain that they can trust me. Once I establish that, I can move to the product. Once I actually get on a certainty scale that they believe in the service, they believe in the product, I can get to the next thing. So essentially, you're walking someone through a straight line, and you can always discern and understand where on the straight line are they at on a level 1 to 10. I cannot close a sale if my trust level is at a 6 out of 10. I got to go back and I got to show them that I'm an expert, I'm an authority in this space, and you can trust me. And he says when you go outside of the boundaries, you're going into Pluto, you're going to Uranus, because now the sale is way out.
You're talking about Uranus right now.
I was spitting bars, dude. So that's another great thing I read in The Way of the Wolf after I watched Wolf of Wall Street.
Still haven't seen that movie yet.
You haven't seen it?
No, I don't. Trust me, I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna go home tonight and just like, have a glass of wine and watch it or something, because I've been, there's so many good shits. I've seen so many different clips on it, and I used to be in the financial world, so I'm just surprised I haven't seen it.
Man, the level of debauchery you're gonna see in that is just
also be like a regular hockey weekend for me then.
Exactly, just the bros.
we don't talk about that here.
For a nice glass and just
we don't talk about that here.
But back to what I was saying. So he breaks this down into how you can really close a sale. And there's certain factors which someone needs to feel before you move on to the next thing.
Makes sense.
They need to believe in the company. They need to believe in the product or the service. They need to believe in you. And also ultimately to believe that you can actually execute on this and actually deliver on what it says.
Well, it's very similar to what I do with my listing presentations. I do all that. Like we established like the 6 questions we talked about before. Like why me? Why my brokerage? What's your what do I do to market your property? What's your property worth and what's happening in the market? Each kind of those steps leads into the other one because you're building rapport and why you're on that stuff too. So I've been actually following those steps based on, from my previous coach and stuff, what he told me to do on those 6 questions. It helps do that. And it's 100% right. So by the time you get to like what's happening with your property worth, like the clients have enough knowledge about you and you've built those steps. It can happen very quickly within an hour or something too. But you always say stop, answer questions to make sure you're the authority. But I can see how that technique 100% works. You can't just go in at the end and say, I've seen people try and they're like, oh, your house is worth $1 million. We'll list it on Friday and here we go.
Yeah. And within your industry, what are some things that you see can make a lot of realtors lose a deal within the negotiation process? Like common things.
Well, first of all, putting themselves first.
Yeah.
I've seen agents putting themselves first and the other agent just doesn't want to work with the person. They can definitely lose a deal that way. I've seen also not explaining to your clients, like if you're on the buy side, the difference if you're buying with a mortgage as opposed to on the sell side. So $1,000 or even let's say even $10,000 on the buy side, you're able to mortgage that. So you might out of pocket might be putting maybe $1,000 out of that $10,000 down, right? And you can mortgage the remainder. So it takes you maybe 25 years to mortgage that. So you really don't feel the effects of that. Whereas the seller, that's actual $10,000 out of their pocket. So not understanding the other side of where the actual dollar value means to them, it also can make you lose the deal. Not getting that. And simple things is like being too rigid on certain things, like getting the emotional state in there, like allowing your clients to get emotional when it comes to when they shouldn't be like, I wanted that, the $200, piece of heirloom, which is going with them. They just get fixated on things that don't matter. I think those are ones that are, when you get fixated on something that's not even part of the negotiation deal, and then that becomes your sword to fall on. I've seen deals fall through that way.
And as we work towards wrapping up, if you can visualize a dream sale, like a house, let's say like a price tag, I don't know, I'll let you answer this. But if you could think about like a dream sale of like a house that you'd want to one day have that feeling of like, you know what, I had an opportunity to close such a deal, what would that look like to you?
On the buy side or the sell side?
I'll let you dictate that side of
So,
things.
I've gone to a point where I've had some of my clients, we've negotiated like $200,000 off the price point. And to me, that's like, which they weren't working with the other agent, but we were able to negotiate other aspects. That was a dream sale for me. Like knocked $200,000 off of the price point, or $300,000 off a price point, just because we were able to fix other parameters to fit into that. That was huge. On the buy side, on the sell side, it's like, listing a price and just, making it look perfect. And then even though we thought like maybe just a little bit above market value, and still getting multiple offers, a couple offers on it, and selling it for a crazy amount of money it makes my clients happy. I don't make as much money as they do, and they're super static. Those are great scenarios because we've done everything we needed to do. And so helps on the sell side, helps on the buy side. I think those are dream scenarios.
I'm curious too, as someone who is learning about the industry, about you, what is the most expensive house you've ever sold?
So with my clients, the purchase was just under 6.3.
6.3 mil?
That's the most highest price tag. Yeah.
Have you ever had an opportunity to like list like a mansion on like Bridal Path?
Not yet. I might. We have a potential client coming up. It's under 10 million on the purchase side. So again, we're still breaking in. Like, so the thing is with those guys have had those clients, it's either family or friends or have been in there too. Nobody I know owns like, we have one friend who already has a realtor who has like, he has like a $20 million home. Other than that, but it's like, it's a very small group of people. Right. I love the opportunity, but I still like helping the regular person. Like, like those are nice, but you almost don't want to feel like, once you get to that level that somebody who wants to sell a $600,000 condo is not going to call you. I'm like, no, I love selling $600,000 condos. I do. It's the transaction's a little bit quicker. It's like you get your hands dirty in it. It's like sometimes with the higher price tag, it becomes a burden because you spend so much money getting it ready and advertising something. It looks good on a portfolio, but it sometimes takes painfully long time to sell, and sometimes it doesn't sell at all, and you have to eat that cost. So that's never been my goal. It's like, it's never a dream to sell that $20 million because you've already had 7 agents. How much money did they lose? So it's, don't get me wrong, I'd still want to do it, but it's never been my goal as a focus. That's what I need to be to show that I made it or anything like that.
I always thought about maybe if I went into real estate one time, because when I watch guys like Ryan Serhant and all these, that one Netflix show, Love It or Sell It, is it what it's called?
Love It or Listed.
Love It or Listed. Like all these.
Not Hot Market, what I was on.
Hot Market, when you're on HDTV. But they're selling like multi-million-dollar properties. And we can get this on another podcast, right? Like how the process of selling those type of properties, because you've been in that game a little bit. But that I think that's what entices from like the outside looking in, is like if I'm like a brand new agent and I'm seeing how glamorous it looks, like you're selling these like properties, like
but you also like, so I took a number of Ryan Serhant's courses. And I think he's brilliant. I think from what he started, from where he's at now, he's built this brand, a brokerage he's done. It's something to aspire for. I think a lot of us agents, it's very noble. Although I don't want his life. He never sees his wife or his kid, and it's just like, that's not really what I want to be about. But I have to commend him on that kind of stuff. But he's brought us through in some of his courses, some of the sellers they had those higher price points. And it's like, so some of they have different personalities. Some of them you're like, and they, like, again, you understand, like some of the $20 million people, like they're very successful. They've done things a certain way. They also don't want to be told what to do sometimes. So that's also, it's a different animal. It's a different animal.
Amazing, man. Well, DC, this has been an amazing chat. I always love talking about these things, like the psychology of what makes people do things, not even just sales, but what makes people do things and what triggers them. And great chat. Audience, if you love that, rate, review the show. Make sure you subscribe to the DC Talks podcast. DC, any lasting words you want to leave with the audience?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like I think our life becomes like everything we do is something psychological, right? I think you can bring that aspect to sales, but just be human about it too. Understand what you're saying. Think about what you're saying too, because words matter. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in. I am your co-host, Owen Osinde. You've been listening to the DC Talks podcast. This is episode 7. We'll be back next week with episode 8, and we'll see you there.